Welcome, everybody, to the NFL show, brought to you by BetNow.eu on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. BetNow.eu for all your betting needs. You can get a 100% cashback bonus to bet the Bengals Steelers game tonight by using the promo code Truth100 at BetNow.eu or going to thegruelingtruth.com, clicking on the banner at the top of the page. Use the promo code Truth100. All right, guys, I am your co-host for the NFL show, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I'd like to welcome in from the FF Face-Off, Anthony Cervino. What's up, Anthony?
What's going on, Mike?
Nothing. I'm just happy because we can talk about a Cowboys loss. But first up, we're going to talk a little bit about Burfict. Just came through the league. That Burfict has been suspended without pay for the remainder of the 2019 season, as well as the postseason. Like the Raiders are going to be in a postseason because of unnecessary roughness rules. The NFL wrote there were no mitigating circumstances on this play. Your contact was unnecessary, flagrant, and should have been avoided. For your actions, you were penalized and disqualified for the game. Following each of your previous rule violations, you have been warned by me, this is John Runyon, of the jointly appointed appeal officials that future violations would result in escalated accountability measures. However, you have continued to flagrantly abuse rules designated to protect yourself and your opponents from unnecessary risk. Your extensive history of rules violations is factored into this decision regarding accountability measures. All right, so Anthony, what's your take? Is this suspension good? I think it's bad because I don't think he should ever be allowed to play again.
You know, Burfict, really talented player, but he comes with these issues. Labeled a dirty player. The NFL took its action. So, yeah, I do believe the suspension is warranted, but I also believe players deserve to try to rehabilitate and get another chance.
Yeah, but he has been given
I know. This isn't new.
I mean, if he was less of a player, he probably would have been gone a lot longer time ago.
But this is a big blow for a Raiders team that, they're inconsistent, but they've played well at times this season, and this is going to set their defense back.
Yeah, it's a killer for him, and I still don't know why they didn't use Burfict in the Hard Knocks thing, but I'm a Bengals fan, and a lot of the stuff with Burfict I kind of overlook because he's a great player. But after a while, I mean, yesterday's hit was atrocious to me. There was no reason for it. I mean, all you got to do is tackle the guy. He took a headshot on him. And when you look at the CT issues in the league and the way the league's going, I'm a guy that's always saying I love the 70s and 80s because it was more violent. But even I think this was way above what needs to ever happen in an NFL game.
Yeah, it was blatant and unnecessary.
Yeah, and I mean, if this was the first time or the second time even, then you could say, well, he got a little excited, he did something stupid. But this is like the 78th time. And the question with Burfict is this. As a Bengals fan, I know this guy's had like 7 concussions in the last 3 or 4 years, and I don't think he takes his own well-being into effect either, which makes him even more scary and more dangerous.
Yeah, that's a really good point there, because any type of contact, it could create a simultaneous head injury.
Yeah, and that's what he does. I mean, there's a lot of times where, like they hit on Antonio Brown in the playoff game. I mean, he's coming full speed. You got a split second to change it. But in this one, I mean, he targeted his head, and he did it. So hopefully the Raiders will do the right thing and get rid of Burfict, and hopefully nobody will ever deal with him again.
Well, we know in this league that you get a lot of chances. So I don't know if we've heard the last of Burfict.
Yeah. All right, guys, if you want to call in today and make any comments, have any questions for me or Anthony, the phone number is 812-496-0852. Once again, 812-496-0852. You can follow along at Twitter, at Grueling Truth. Ask any questions right there on direct message if you don't want to talk. If you call in and I missed a call, just call back because it doesn't make any noise because then your ringing would show up on the show. So let's go ahead and let's go to Washington where Jay Gruden seems hell-bent on being fired. Why would you bench Case Keenum for Dwayne Haskins early in that game? To me, with the Patriots coming up next week, I think, for the Redskins, they're setting Dwayne Haskins up to fail, and you can't really go back to Case Keenum after you do this. What do you think is the purpose for Jay Gruden on this?
I think Jay Gruden, and this comes days after, it came out that the Redskins staff, they really weren't on board with the Haskins pick. I saw a report they might have wanted Daniel Jones. We knew from the draft that Dwayne Haskins was a pick from ownership and general manager Bruce Allen. And I think they're trying to force his hand a little bit because Case Keenum, I know he turned the ball over 5 times last week, but in the 2 games previous, he put up pretty solid numbers without a turnover.
Yeah.
So this was a move that was forced by ownership. Yeah. I know Keenum had that early turnover, and that was the out. And now you can't go back.
No, you can't.
Because if you go back, you're going to ruin Haskins' psyche.
Yeah, and you're going to ruin Haskins' psyche because if you can only put up 3 points against the New York Giants defense, and Adrian Peterson 11 carries for 28 yards, Dwayne Haskins 9 for 17, 107 yards, 3 interceptions, what happens to him when he plays a real defense?
I mean, you said it. They got the Patriots next week.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter where that game's at. They're going to beat the hell out of him, and they're going to confuse him. And you can ruin a young quarterback. But I mean, the thing that I remember is the Bengals drafted David Klingler in 1991, 92, and they started off the season bad. They benched Boomer Esiason. They put David Klingler in, and Klingler's first game was against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that was the Steelers with Levon Kirkland, Greg Lloyd, Kevin Green. They sacked him like 10 or 11 times. And, I mean, you can't throw a guy in there like that and just expect him to sink or swim because he's going to drown every time.
I mean, that's the trend. You put the rookies in early. I don't agree with it, but then again, I'm not the Redskins.
I think it's according to who the rookie is. It would have made more sense to me to just start Haskins the first game of the season if you're going to throw him in. Why throw him in when you're 0-3 and everything's pretty much lost anyways? I know there's less pressure, but at least the first game of the year, everybody's healthy, and, he's got Darius Geis. Of course, we know that's not going to last very long, but you look at the other side with the Giants. Go ahead.
Well, that's the thing. The Giants made the move, but I also think the Giants have a lot more talent than the Washington Redskins for a rookie to succeed, where a guy like Keenum, he's playing with younger players, especially at receiver, but he can also get the best out of them. I think Haskins needs, like if you put Haskins on the Giants with an Evan Ingram and Sterling Shepard, and even Wayne Gallman. I know Gallman, he had a big game, but he's not a terrible player. He's just behind Saquon Barkley. A lot more talent for a rookie to succeed with New York, especially on that offensive line, than in Washington.
Yeah, and we look at the Giants. Daniel Jones wasn't spectacular. Did throw 2 interceptions, but he was 23 for 31, 225 yards. Gallman, 18 carries, 63 yards. Hillman, 10 carries, 33 yards. So I think the only thing we could take away from this is, Sterling Shepard, Evan Ingram. He doesn't have a lot of weapons, but he's got enough to beat a team like the Washington Redskins who are in complete disarray.
Yeah, the Redskins are usually that competitive team in the division, and the Giants have been the bad team. Now the Redskins, I made a comment yesterday watching these games. The Redskins, they have more talent than Miami Dolphins. I think the Redskins are worse than the Miami Dolphins because at least the Redskins have a couple of players left.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Detroit, where I nailed this game on the Pick'em show because I took Detroit in the points. The Lions held Patrick Mahomes without a touchdown pass, but Mahomes was 24 for 42, 315 yards. LaShawn McCoy ran the ball well, but sparingly because it's an Andy Reid offense, 11 carries for 56 yards. But I think this tells us more about the Detroit Lions. I think the Lions played really well in this game without Darius Slay. Matt Stafford was 21 for 34, 291 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kerryon Johnson, 26 carries for 125 yards. My takeaway from this is that Matt Patricia is actually doing a really good job in Detroit this year.
Yeah, and I've been praising Patricia now for a couple of weeks. Last year, I'll keep going back to it. The team wasn't buying in. He moved on from the players that weren't buying in, and now in his second season, brought in a couple of his guys from New England. Stafford yesterday played through a hip injury. Nobody thought that he would even play, but he ended up playing really well. I like this Lions team. They're tough. They're gritty. They almost remind me of how the Buffalo Bills are playing for Sean McDermott. And anytime you have a 53-man roster buying into the coach, they're going to be competitive, and they did take the Kansas City Chiefs down to the wire. I'm almost surprised they didn't win this game.
Yeah, I was surprised because this is the game I watched yesterday since my mighty Cincinnati Bengals weren't on yesterday. And the thing that struck me is this, though, with the Kansas City Chiefs, that defense and the inability to stop the run is going to be what bites them in the ass by the time this is all over with.
Well, isn't that what bit him last year, too, in the playoffs?
Yeah.
Kerryon Johnson coming into this game was probably right around 3 yards a carry for the season, 26 for $125, 4.8 yards a carry. Kerryon also caught a couple of passes for 32 yards. Yeah, that running back position, especially when you start playing against the big boys like a Melvin Gordon and the Los Angeles Chargers, I think they're going to be a pretty tough out for the Kansas City Chiefs.
All right, and a game that surprised me was the Atlanta Falcons got taken to the woodshed by the Tennessee Titans at home. They lose the game 24-10. Matt Ryan, 35 for 53, 397 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. The big issue here for me is Devonta Freeman, 12 carries for 28 yards. There is no running game in Atlanta. The defense is not as good as what I thought they would be. And Marcus Mariota played really well yesterday. It was a great day for Mariota and Winston, who we'll get to in a little bit. But Mariota, 3 touchdowns. Derrick Henry, 27 carries for 100 yards. I think this comes back to what I said before. With the Tennessee Titans, they're not a great team. They're a solid team. They play hard for their coach, and they're a tough team.
Yeah, the Titans are tough. Mariota played really well, which is a surprise to me because I'm not a Mariota guy. They couldn't really get Derrick Henry going the way they usually would, but they were on a road. It was a tough matchup, but the more glaring issue is on the other side with the Atlanta Falcons. I know the Falcons start slow, but this year they're starting slow, and now they can't get out of their way. This was a winnable game at home. You said it. I think you hit the nail on the head. They, in this offseason, whether it was a draft or a free agency, they added a couple of guards. They tried to bolster their interior offensive line to get this running game going. And Devonta Freeman totaled 100 yards, but you said it, only 28 yards on the ground. Smith had a touchdown, but only 11 yards rushing. You can't rely on Matt Ryan alone. If Matt Ryan's throwing the ball 53 times, that probably means you're trailing in the game. And that's not going to be enough. You need some kind of a running game, and that's just not happening in Atlanta. And then let's go to Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn assumed the play-calling duties on defense. That usually happens when you're a coach on the hot seat. And this defense is not responding whatsoever. When you give up 3 touchdown passes to Marcus Mariota, I think you have glaring issues on the defensive side of the ball, and that's going to ultimately cost Dan Quinn his job at the end of the year.
Actually, that Super Bowl should have cost him the job. And I'm still going to say this. The way they blew that game, and since it was on the coaches, I said back then I didn't think they would ever recover, and I think we've seen them get worse every year. A team that has gotten worse every week for the last couple of weeks, the Baltimore Ravens. They get beat by the Cleveland Browns 40-25. Lamar Jackson, 24 for 34, 247 yards, 3 touchdowns. Doesn't sound like bad numbers, but then you look under the INT and you see 2 interceptions. They did not run the ball poorly, but they didn't run the ball the way they have in the past. And the thing that stuck out to me is this Baltimore Ravens defense. They've lost some players in the offseason. They're not as good as what they were, Anthony.
No, and this was my thing with the Ravens. When you lose a Suggs, who's also a leader, and as a Darius Smith, who he had a breakout season rushing the passer last year, and I know they brought in Earl Thomas, but Eric Weddle was a staple in that defense for a couple of years. You're going to regress a little bit, and the Ravens looked good the first couple of games, but they didn't play anybody. We're going to get into my Cowboys later about teams who haven't played anybody. And now that the Ravens, they start out 2-0. Lamar Jackson looks like the second coming, and then you get the Chiefs, and now the Cleveland Browns, who are starting to get hot. What is the identity of the Ravens? Is it Lamar Jackson? Can they run the ball consistently with Mark Ingram? And coming into the year, I know Ingram looks really good the past couple of games, but he's also a 30-year-old running back, and they tend to regress. I think we're going to see changes in Baltimore if they continue to lose games. That's going to start with maybe getting a Gus Edwards or rookie Justice Hill, who I love, more involved in a running game. But it can't be on Lamar Jackson alone. They need to establish a run.
Yeah, and you look at Cleveland, that's what happened yesterday. Baker Mayfield was better because you had Nick Chubb, 20 carries, 165 yards. Hell, Dontrell Hilliard comes in, 6 carries, 27 yards. They had 4 rushing touchdowns as a team. And I think that's the key to any quarterback, but especially a young quarterback like a Mayfield or a Jackson. Almost invariably, whoever's team runs the ball better is the team that wins the game, because that's the quarterback that'll play better because you've taken a lot of heat off of him that way.
Yeah, and this was actually a good game. I've been down on Freddie Kitchens and the Browns, but he really ran the ball well yesterday. Nick Chubb, 20 carries, $165, 3 touchdowns. Dontrell Hilliard, 6 for 27 and 1. This is the way you're going to win ball games, especially in the NFC North. You need to establish the line of scrimmage and
AFC
the run.
North.
AFC North. Baker Mayfield still had a pretty big game, 342 yards passing, a touchdown and an interception, 20 for 30, his best completion percentage of the year, if I'm not mistaken. Here's where the issues come in. Jarvis Landry, for the second straight week, leads the team in receiving. Where the hell is Odell Beckham? 2 for 20? At what point, or does Odell Beckham Jr. begin to kind of go a little crazy if he's not the star? I know that winning can sometimes solve everything, but Odell Beckham Jr. is a diva, and maybe that's not going to be enough if they continue to win and he's putting up 20 yards a game.
Yeah, but they did let him throw the ball to one time.
Oh, that's great.
So, he threw it like 65, 70 yards. It was actually pretty impressive.
But do you see this lasting with Odell Beckham Jr. and not putting up numbers?
I think if they're winning usually cures most ails. I just because it's Odell Beckham Jr., I don't know if that will matter as much to him as it was a normal wide receiver.
That's where I'm going.
But for right now, and you got to remember, their schedule is tough for the next month. So I still, when I look at the AFC North, I mean, this is sad enough that whoever wins the Bengals-Steelers game tonight is a game out of first. And with the way the other teams look, I mean, hell, the losing team's only 2 games out. This is a division that could be won with 8 or 9 wins.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I saw a report. A.J. Green could be 2 weeks before he's back. If the Bengals can win tonight, squeak out a win. I tell you,
and beat the Cardinals. They play the Cardinals at home.
I like the Bengals. I'm not getting off that horse.
Okay. I wouldn't get on that horse if I was you, because that horse would probably be held up by an offensive line, so that horse would immediately fall to the ground. All right. We had a surprise in Indianapolis, of course, as all Colts fans have been trying to convince themselves endlessly since Andrew Luck retired that Jacoby Brissett's good enough to get it done. I think we saw yesterday why he's not. You cannot lose to the Oakland Raiders at home by a touchdown, and they got outplayed the whole game. Brissett's numbers aren't bad, but he threw a pick. Marlon Mack goes out of the game. There's no running game. I think there's troubles in Indianapolis.
I'm not ready to bail on the Colts yet. I like the way that they played. You're not going to win them all. I mean, Brissett has played well, better than I expected, better than just being a game manager in his time in his second year as a starter. What didn't happen, something that is the biggest storyline coming out of this game, is a lack of a running game. Marlon Mack, 11 for 39. Brissett 5 for 19, Wilkins 4 for 17. And I know Mac left that game early, but you need to establish the run if Jacoby Brissett is going to win football games. There was no running game yesterday, and that ultimately cost them the game because then it was a quarterback-on-quarterback shootout. The team that established the run was able to kind of milk the clock. Josh Jacobs on the other side, 7 for 79. Usually the team that can run will come away with the win in these type of football games.
Yeah, and
no T.Y. Hilton didn't help either.
Yeah, but you know what? No T.Y. Hilton doesn't give up 31 points to the Raiders. I mean, my concern here is the defense. I thought the defense had issues last year, especially.
There was no Malik Hooker. Malik Hooker's done for the year.
Yeah, but there's no pressure up front either. So that's what I'm saying. When you take away Malik Hooker, you got T.Y. Hilton's out. I think this team, luckily, is in a division where it's like the AFC North, 8 or 9. I mean, hell, right now, Anthony, there might be a 6-10 team make the playoffs in the AFC. You've only got 3 teams that are above 500, I think, in the AFC, don't we? Chiefs, Bills, and Patriots.
Yeah. Well, it's only 4 games in, but yeah, you got a point.
Yeah, but how many teams in the NFC are above 500? I bet it's a lot more than 3.
I'll check up on that. I'll let you know.
All right, so overall with the Raiders, I can't stand John Gruden, but the fact that they're 2-2 right now is he's done a good job. And the thing that stands out to me the most is I still think Derek Carr's a really good quarterback, which always gives you a chance. All right, Panthers-Texans. If you listen to the NFL Pick'em show, I told
8 teams. 8 teams in the NFC. Wow.
Yeah, see, 3 times as many. Maybe that's because they're playing AFC teams. The Carolina Panthers beat the Houston Texans 16-10. I really like Kyle Allen. Christian McCaffrey is the best running back in football. I think the Panthers can win the South as long as Cam Newton's not the starting quarterback, Anthony.
Yeah, I really like Kyle Allen, and he had 3 fumbles lost yesterday. Didn't play his best game, but he's 3-0 as a starter dating back to week 17 of last season. Beat the Cardinals, beat the Texans. He's going to have a tough matchup with the Jacksonville Jaguars coming up. But if he gets into this rhythm and Christian McCaffrey keeps playing Christian McCaffrey football, this Panthers team could be dangerous. They can't. 24 for 34. Where the hell did these targets go? Because DJ Moore only caught 3. Greg Olsen only caught 2. Samuel caught 3. Can Christian McCaffrey continuously? He had 37 touches. Somebody else has to step up. Well, 37 touches, 10 catches.
Yeah, but
when you have Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore, Greg Olsen, somebody else has to make a play.
Well, they don't have to, but Christian McCaffrey's career is going to be about 2 more years at most at 37 touches a game in the NFL.
Yeah.
Because eventually he's going to break down. You look at the Texans, Deshaun Watson, 21-33, 160 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. Carlos Hyde, 12 carries for 58 yards. DeAndre Hopkins, 5 receptions, 41 yards. Those stats don't get it done. Justin Reed played really well on defense. The Texans has always played well on defense. J.J. Watt made a big play. But with the Texans and Panthers, I think it's safe to say for me, I think both teams are probably going to end up in the 8-8 range. But if the Panthers could get more production from somebody other than McCaffrey, I think they got a chance to do something. The Texans have a shot just because they're in the AFC South.
Well, what is going on with the Texans? They had that big game in week 1 offensively, and they haven't really gotten to their rhythm. I don't know if it's because they lost Lamar Miller in the preseason.
I think it's the offensive line.
But DeAndre Hopkins, an elite wide receiver, possibly the best all-around receiver in the game, 5 for 40, 6 for 67, and 5 for 41 in the past 3 games. No touchdowns. I don't know if it's like you said, the line, the lack of running game, but this team, who normally can score points at will, can't put anything on the board.
Yeah, it's the offensive line.
And now you got Atlanta, Kansas City, and Indianapolis your next 3 games.
Well, you might be able to win 2 out of the 3 there.
I don't disagree there, but can they score points?
They could. If they could
'Cause we
block
know-
somebody.
Yeah.
Because really, they don't have the offense to, switch to this quick. I don't think there's enough receivers to all of a sudden become a spread team that's just getting the ball out real quick.
They do have the receivers. Will Fuller, Kiki Cutie, Kenny Stills. They have the players.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just the offensive line's bad. When the offensive line's bad, it's hard to do anything. Next up, the Miami Dolphins got a moral victory yesterday as they got their first lead of the season. It lasted 4 minutes, and then they got beat 30-10. I really don't. I think the 2008 Detroit Lions would have smacked the Dolphins by 14 points.
I mean, didn't the Dolphins go winless like 10 years ago too?
I didn't. Yeah, I thought the Lions were the first. Yeah, they might have. Maybe they can do it again.
The Lions and the Dolphins.
And the Bears.
And this is going to be the second time.
Yeah. That's good. Josh Rosen was 17 for 24, 180 yards. I just don't know why we're even talking about this game. But Phillip Rivers, 24 for 30, 310, 2 touchdowns. Austin Eckler, 18 carries for 60 yards. The Chargers are now 2-2, and with Melvin Gordon coming back, and with the way the AFC is right now, what the hell? Maybe they can do something here.
I mean, they're going to get Melvin Gordon back. Gordon was active, but only was active in an emergency situation. They obviously didn't need him. This team's going to get healthier. They got the Broncos and the Steelers and the Titans coming up, 3 winnable games, at least 2 of them with Denver and Pittsburgh. So I'm not going to count out the Los Angeles Chargers yet because they do normally start slow. Yesterday was that get-right matchup they needed. Now, you get your star player back. Let's see what they can do with it.
All right, next up, the Buffalo Bills, I think.
I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
Not to steer through, but we're in a weird situation where the Chargers kicker, Mike Bagley, has not played all season, and their punter has been doing double duty. Is this something, and really he hasn't, aside from week 2 where he missed 2 field goal attempts, he's been perfect on the year. Is this something that we could see where maybe an NFL team wants that extra roster spot and start getting a punter who can also kick?
Well, we've seen it in the past. You look back in the mid-'80s? I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals used Lee Johnson after Pat McInally retired. They used Lee Johnson as the punter, and he would kick off, where you had Jim Breach would just kick the field goals. So it's kind of been done before. But if you've got a guy that can do both, why wouldn't you do that?
I mean, he's doing everything.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you can get a guy, I mean, hell, if Mike Brown hears about this, the Bengals will be new that in a heartbeat. They could save him some money. So, yeah, if you got a guy that can do both, why wouldn't you? And most kickers can punt, which is why when the kicker gets hurt or something, the punter will kick the field goals or vice versa. But if you've got some, the only thing is this, the way I see it is most guys, once they're high school and they go to college, they become specialists at one or the other. So I don't know how many guys are out there where you would get the same results if he's doing both things as if you had one separate, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up because, he's been Los Angeles Chargers. They've had kicking issues in the past, and he's 7 for 9, and he's not even a kicker on field goals and hasn't missed an extra point.
If I'm their regular kicker, I think I'm getting my ass healthy as soon as I possibly can, though, before the Chargers figure that out. Let's check out the Patriots and the Bills was interesting to me. Tom Brady, 18 for 39, 150 yards and an interception. Sony Michel, 17 for 63. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't throw the ball. But the thing that impressed me the most here, Anthony, and why I think this Bills team is for real, I thought they were real since the start of the season because I thought defensively they could go to the playoffs off of the defense. But the Patriots jumped out 13-0. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching the red zone with my son. And he goes, oh, this is about to be 50-0. And then before you know it, it's 13-3 and it's halftime. It's 16-10 going to the fourth quarter. The thing that stands out here is we've talked about this before, and you brought up Sean McDermott, how hard and tough and how they play together as a team. I think what we saw yesterday is as good as a win for Buffalo, or almost as good as a win, because what we saw is in the past, any AFC East team that falls behind 13 to nothing, it usually ends up about 40 to 10. And this team collected themselves. Their quarterback did not play well. I mean, Josh Allen, 13 for 28 for 153 yards before he got knocked out. He threw 3 interceptions. And their defense was good enough to keep him in the game. And the offensive line against maybe the best defense in the NFL, they made enough room for an old Frank Gore to run the ball 17 times for 109 yards. I think it's time to take the Bills seriously.
I've been taking the Bills seriously, and even if the Patriots...
No, we called them pretenders when it came to the Super Bowl.
No,
I'm talking about when you talk about the Super Bowl.
I'm taking the Bills seriously as a playoff team and as a future emerging team in this league. I'm not going to call them a Super Bowl contender, but I thought this game could have been close, and even if the Patriots blew them out, they would do what the Patriots do. But the fact that this game was so close, I don't know if this is any closer if Josh Allen didn't get knocked out, because he already threw 3 interceptions. Matt Barkley 9 for 16.
Yeah, but remember this: last week we watched Josh Allen stink the joint up in the second and third quarter against Cincinnati. When the Bengals came back and took the lead, Josh Allen all of a sudden took his team down to win the game. Now, I know that's against the Bengals. It's not the Patriots. Yeah. But Josh Allen against the Jets, the same thing. And I know, once again, Jets, Patriots, 2 completely different things. But these are games where he's not playing well. But in the fourth quarter, when they need somebody to make plays, he makes plays. And to me, that's the most important thing about being a quarterback.
Yeah, I'm a Josh Allen guy. I just get worried about his turnover issue.
Oh, I'm not a Josh Allen guy because of the turnover issues. But when I constantly see a guy overcome those turnovers in the fourth quarter and lead his team back to win, it gives me a little bit more hope for him than, I got more hope for him than Mitchell Trubisky. And my thing about the Bills being a Super Bowl contender, how many Super Bowl contenders do you think there are in the AFC? 2?
I mean, that's really all you need.
So this is the thing, though. If there's only 2, it only takes an injury here or there, and the Bills staying healthy, you're in the conversation. And with that defense, the way they played yesterday, if Josh Allen improves, takes care of the ball a little bit more, becomes more of a, I hate this word because every quarterback has to be this, but if he's more of a game manager, with their ability to run the ball, they're missing Devin Singletary yesterday.
Good point.
I don't know why this team couldn't be a Super Bowl contender.
On the other side, are we worried because the Patriots couldn't run the ball? The Bills' defense, their front seven's good, but they were giving up production to running backs. Sony Michel can't get out of his own way this season. Only 17 carries, 63 yards. The best running back on the Patriots, and James White to me is a pass-catching specialist. Rex Burkhead, he came into the game injured. I think he was dealing with the foot. He didn't carry the ball. He didn't even run the ball. Burkhead caught the ball. He should be the top running back on that depth chart, splitting time with James White, not Sony Michel. There's something up with Sony Michel.
But the thing is this, they didn't have Rex Burkhead, which I think had a lot to do with this.
No, he played. He caught one pass. They didn't use him.
They didn't use him as a running back, is what I'm saying, though. So it's hard to. I agree. I love Rex Burkhead, but we also know that Bill Belichick likes to change things up to keep people guessing week to week. And I think McDermott did a great job of coaching this game. And I think the Bills are a legitimate contender to make a deep run into January. Let's put it like that. I think the Super Bowl, if all of a sudden you get, a Josh Allen that doesn't turn the ball over 3 times a game, I think it's possible. I mean, what we're looking at, right now, the way quarterbacks are dropping, you could have Mahomes or Brady go out. Next thing you know, the Bills are in a championship game because right now, I think the Bills may be the 3rd best team in the AFC.
I wouldn't discount that. especially with the inconsistencies of Cleveland and the Ravens. I wouldn't discount the Bills as the third best team in the AFC.
Oh, I think the Bills are much better than Cleveland or the Ravens because I think they have extremely good defense, and the Browns and Ravens. I think the Browns may have a better defense than the Ravens, and offensively, I don't think either team is that good, especially playing against a defense like Buffalo, because if Buffalo can give Tom Brady problems, what's it going to do with Baker Mayfield and Lamar Jackson? So, all right, let's go to Jameis Winston. We talked about Marcus Mariota, and the thing that impressed me here was not just that the Buccaneers beat the Rams 55-40. The thing that impressed me was 28 for 41, 385, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. He throws the interception with 9 minutes left in the game to put the Rams back in the game. But instead of doing what he normally does after that, which is to throw the ball again to the other team to lose the game, Jameis Winston got himself under control. He managed the game. He played really well. Ronald Jones ran the ball all right, 19 carries for 70 yards. But to me, Jameis Winston now has played 3 good games in a row.
Yeah, I really like what Jameis Winston is doing in the past couple of games. They are running the ball more, and I think I've said this maybe a week or two ago on the Monday show, that if they established a run with one of these backs, they seem to be going back and forth, but that's working. These running backs are combining for 20 to 25 carries a game. That's taking the ball out of Jameis Winston's hands. He's throwing it less, protecting him more. He did have that interception, but lit it up yardage and touchdown-wise. How about Chris Godwin, who's really emerging into, I don't know if he's a number 1 or number 1A to Mike Evans. Mike Evans is still the guy there, but Chris Godwin, you got to take this guy seriously. He went into the game as a game-time decision with a hip injury. He's another one that toughed it out and balled out.
Yeah, 12 receptions, 172 yards, 2 touchdowns.
He was unguardable.
Yeah.
He was unguardable, and people need to start taking him seriously.
Yeah, and on the other side, how much longer is Sean McVay the boy genius? And
the NFL caught up. They caught up.
Come on. Right now, Jared Goff was 45 for 68, 517 yards, 2 touchdowns. Unfortunately, 3 interceptions, but 45 for 68. I mean, those are Madden numbers. I know they fell behind early, but Todd Gurley, 5 carries for 16 yards. Malcolm Brown, 5 carries for 14 yards. I mean, this is not how you win football games, and I think this is why we both said when it came to Super Bowl contenders that the Rams were just pretenders this year, Anthony.
I mean, it's their first loss. Let's pump the brakes a little bit.
No, we're not going to pump the brakes because I wasn't impressed with any of their wins. Jared Goff is not very good. You cannot throw the ball. And you know what? The reason he's not very good may be because of Sean McVay. I mean, he's still a young quarterback. You've got to be able to establish the run. You can't just come off and throw the ball 70 times in an NFL game and expect to win the game.
I'm not discounting that 68 times. That's a lot, but I'm not going to say the Rams are not contenders because they
You
lost
said they
in
weren't.
a shootout.
Well, we did contender pretender. You said they were pretender as Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah.
So you don't think that they could squeak in?
To what? The playoffs? Or are you talking about the Super Bowl?
I'm not ready to just give up on the Rams.
No, I think they're a playoff team, but I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. Because, number one, the defense is supposed to be so great, just got torched for 55 points. You know, I mean, they shut down Baker Mayfield, but that's a little bit easier.
And I said the Packers were a Super Bowl contender on that show.
Yeah, and I don't think the Packers are a Super Bowl contender.
And I don't know if the Cowboys are right now.
I don't know that anybody is right now. All right, next.
I'm panicking.
Don't panic yet. We got like 3 more games to talk about before you can panic on air, okay? But next up, the Seattle Seahawks against the Arizona Cardinals. And I actually heard people pick the Cardinals to win this game. Russell Wilson, 22 for 28, 240 yards, 1 touchdown. Chris Carson, 22 carries, 104 yards. On the other side with the Cardinals, 22 for 32 for Kyler Murray, 241, one interception. David Johnson again, Anthony, 11 carries, 40 yards. I know the offensive line is bad, but, I mean, come on. David Johnson's got to touch the ball more than 11 times to be successful in Arizona, doesn't he?
Yeah, he absolutely does. I thought yesterday was going to be a David Johnson game at home, try to control the clock a little bit, keep the ball out of Russell Wilson's hands, and it was completely the opposite. They just want to keep throwing the football downfield, and it's not working. And now they can potentially lose Christian Kirk with a high ankle sprain. That takes another weapon away. Eventually, they will have to commit to the run.
And I want to bring this up. The Christian Kirk being hurt and Larry Fitzgerald, why do NFL teams constantly, in the last 5 minutes of games that are complete lost causes, continue to leave their starting quarterback, their starting receivers, and all their starters in the game for no reason other than basically you're risking something like what happened to Christian Kirk happening?
Christian Kirk's a young player. So is Kyler Murray. They're a young team.
Yeah, so why do you want to risk him in the final minute? Oh, come on.
What gets at me more is when teams like the Cowboys or the Patriots, when they keep their starters in with a 22-point lead against the Dolphins. That's what irks me more.
Yeah, or being down 22. I mean, all these teams do it, Anthony. It doesn't matter if they got younger quarterbacks or older quarterbacks or whoever they've got. But, all right, let's move on to the NFC North, where the Chicago Bears moved to 3-1 behind Chase Daniel. 22 for 30, 195 yards, one touchdown. I would like to say this. I really like Chase Daniel. He backed up Drew Brees for a while, and I think that the Bears have a better chance to be successful with Chase Daniel than they do with Mitchell Trubisky, Anthony.
Maybe. Trubisky's very inconsistent, and Daniel's a career backup. I just think the Chicago Bears don't have a quarterback.
How about this? Daniels is a career backup because his career was spent in New Orleans. Now,
so you think? I mean, come on. Look at the guys. Look at Mike Glennon. When people thought Mike Glennon was going to be a guy,
but I've never thought Mike Glennon was a guy. I've always thought Chase Daniel was.
A.J. McCarron's another one that comes to mind. Come on.
And I don't know anybody with any ounce of intelligence that ever thought A.J. McCarron was a starting quarterback.
If Chase Daniel was going to be a starter, he would have been a starter by now.
So you think he should have beat out Drew Brees? Because that's the only opportunity he had, I think, until they went to Chicago, and then they draft Mitchell Trubisky, and you know they're not going to play Daniel, even if they think he might be better than the number 2 guy. I'm not saying that Chase Daniel is a stud. I'm just saying Chase Daniel's better than Mitch Trubisky. That's all I'm saying there. I'm not saying all of a sudden the Bears are a Super Bowl team with Chase Daniel. I'm just saying they're better off with him. The other concern I have with the Bears, and I'll go back to Jordan Howard, they still can't run the ball.
Yeah, I mean, they did play a tough Vikings team. That game was ugly, no matter how you look at it. That was such an ugly offensive game.
Yeah, and at some point, Kirk Cousins has got to be able to make plays against good defenses. The numbers look good, 27 for 36, 233 yards, but there was really no stretching of the defense. Dalvin Cook was basically bottled up, 14 carries for 35 yards. And to me, as much as I'm paying Kirk Cousins, if I'm Minnesota, if Dalvin Cook's bottled up, Kirk Cousins is supposed to be good enough to win me this game.
Is Kirk Cousins getting into a rhythm because they want to establish the run? I know Adam Thielen was vocal, saying that we need to pass the ball more. I think it's an identity issue.
Oh, I think that they're completely out of rhythm. I think it's a play calling issue. I don't think that, I don't know. It just seems like they're not sure what they want to do. And I can see why you want to get the ball to Dalvin Cook, but then again, he only touched the ball 14 times, and you threw the ball 36 times. But that's probably because you got behind also. But right now, there's a defense. They've got everything they need in Minnesota, except they lack play calling big time because their play calling's all over the place. To me, it looks like a play is being called to call that play, where the play needs to be called setting up the next play and the play after that, and it doesn't seem like they've got that in mind. It seems like they're hoping Dalvin Cook on first down is going to run for 6 yards, and then they can just call whatever they want.
If they didn't have to throw the ball 37 times, it wasn't like that was a blowout. That was a 2-score game.
Yeah, and they only got the ball to Cook 14 times. Now, I'll tell you, I would rather have Dalvin Cook run the ball 28 times than Kirk Cousins throw it 28 times. But,
yeah, I don't disagree there.
We do have a Leonard Fournette sighting in Jacksonville, though, as Jacksonville comes from, I think it was 17 or 20-3 down against the Denver Broncos. Leonard Fournette, 19 carries, 225 yards. Gardner Minshew mania continues, 19 for 33, 213 yards, 2 touchdowns. This was a really good performance by Jacksonville's offense.
Yeah, I really liked Jacksonville yesterday. I thought yesterday would have been a Leonard Fournette game, and it was. Gardner Minshew's the real deal. I think it's going to keep going. I think they have a pretty favorable schedule. If they can keep establishing the run with Leonard Fournette and take some of the pressure off of Minshew, the Jaguars are going to be in the mix for a playoff spot.
Yeah, especially in the AFC South, because you're going to be in the mix if you win 6 games, probably. Joe Flacco, 22 for 38, 303 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. The problem with Denver is not Joe Flacco. The problem to me is that defense is not what it once was, Anthony.
No, and you had to see it coming. There was a lot of turnover on the defense, guys getting older, guys aging out. This pass rush with Von Miller and Bradley Chubb just isn't there.
Well, it was yesterday. They had, I think, 4 or 5 sacks yesterday.
Right, but it wasn't there. It hasn't been there all season.
Yeah, and the back end of the defense isn't near as good as what it was either.
Right, there's no more. They traded away Aqib Talib last year, and that really, they lost what's his name? Courtney Roby or Bradley Roby?
Bradley Roby. And
they have Chris Harris left, but he can't do it by himself. The Denver needs to be in complete rebuild mode. Starting with John Elway.
All right. Now, the Dallas Cowboys, who weren't supposed to lose the rest of this decade, somebody said, got beat 12-10 by Teddy Bridgewater and the New Orleans Saints last night. Dak Prescott, 22 for 33, 223 yards, 1 interception. But the biggest stat here is Ezekiel Elliott, 18 carries for 35 yards. And that is the only time that the Cowboys ran the ball. 18 carries, 35 yards. The only other runs were by Tavon Austin and Dak Prescott. What's going on here, Anthony?
This game did worry me coming into it. The Saints defense, they really stepped it up at home. The play calling. They ran the ball well in the first half, or better than they did in the second half. And the second half, they gave up on it and just kept dropping Dak to pass. It was not needed. The Cowboys' defense played outstanding. But I think the story of the game is how well the Saints' defense played. And also on the Cowboys' end, I think the Michael Gallup loss in games like this hurts Dallas. It doesn't hurt him against the Dolphins. It doesn't hurt him against the Redskins. But in a game where Amari Cooper's blanketed by Marshawn Lattimore, one of the best in the game, you need help. And Gallup is that speed deep threat that they really didn't have. And Tavon Austin's not it, and neither is Devin Smith.
Yeah, and my big question here is this. Last week, the Cowboys played the Dolphins. The Cowboys have played a really soft schedule. The Saints have played a much tougher schedule. I mean, they had to go to Seattle last week. How much does that play into this? Because you got one team that's used to banging heads with teams that can play, and another team that's just playing weak competition. I think that has to play into this too. And it's not the Cowboys' fault. It's not like the NCAA and they get to schedule their schedule. But I think that plays into it here also.
Well, I think this is going to be a wake-up call for Dallas for sure, because now you got the Eagles and the Jets coming up.
Well, the Jets maybe not so much. But the Eagles, they are the best team in the NFC East, as I have claimed all year, and probably the best team in the NFC. And now you would probably have to agree with me, right, Anthony?
I'm not ready to go there yet.
Yeah, you're a sissy. All right. Tonight, of course, is probably the most important game of the year because the Pittsburgh Steelers are playing the Cincinnati Bengals, and everybody knows the Bengals have always been considered America's team. What do you think, Anthony? Steelers, Bengals?
I like Cincinnati on the road here because of Andy Dalton. Mason Rudolph, I mean, maybe he can get the job done, but there's nobody else in the Steelers offense that has been stepping up, not even Juju Smith-Schuster. He had a big play last week. They can't run the ball. They have no wide receiver, too. I just don't think there's enough. And their defense isn't exactly playing the best. So if Andy Dalton can just play mistake-free football and maybe you can get Joe Mixon going, Cincinnati should win this game.
Well, I think there's a few keys here. I think the Steelers haven't figured out how to defend a tight end for several seasons, and they seem to be really good at making average tight ends look great. I think C.J. Uzomah could have a huge night tonight. The other thing is, I think a trend we've seen with the Steelers' defense is wearing down late. And the Bengals, I think, will try to mimic what teams have done this season, use quick throws and tempo to keep the defense chasing its tail. I think that there's a possibility you could wear them down here. If the Bengals could somehow get Joe Mixon going, which with the Bengals' offensive line probably isn't going to happen, I see more ways for the Bengals to win this game than I do the Steelers because I just don't think Mason Rudolph's got it. But if Mason Rudolph's ever going to look good, it's going to be against the Bengals because the Bengals have been really good at making bad Steeler quarterbacks look good if you look back in history. I mean, Mark Malone made a history off of playing against the Cincinnati Bengals and turned it into a decade career.
So did Baker Mayfield.
Well, he didn't play for the Steelers, though. But I'm just talking about Steeler quarterbacks because the other one that stands out to me is 1986. Malone gets hurt. Bubby Brister comes in on a Sunday night football game in Cincinnati, and the Bengals did beat him 22-20. But Bubby, who nobody had ever heard of, threw for like 300 yards, and the next thing you know, Bubby's an NFL quarterback for a while.
What a name, Bubby Brister.
Bubby Brister. Hey, he got a Super Bowl ring, though. He played for Denver when they beat Green Bay because if you remember, I believe John Elway pulled himself out of the game so Bubby could take the last snap.
What a guy.
Who, Bubby or John Elway?
John Elway.
Yeah, when he's not drinking. Great guy. Let's see. My take, we talked about Vontaze Burfict. I wanted to talk about this real quick. You saw Jonathan Jones hit on Bills quarterback Josh Allen. Allen's now in concussion protocol. What do you think should be done? Because Jones was flagged, but there was no penalty as it was offset by an offensive flag on the same play. Why? I know Burfict's being treated differently because he's perfect, but shouldn't Jones be treated? I mean, something should be done. Why wasn't he tossed out of the game?
That's a question for the league. I have no idea. I agree with you, but that's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, but, I mean, could you imagine if he would have done that? If a Bill would have done that to Tom Brady, they'd have probably made him leave in handcuffs. But since it's Josh Allen, it's not as big a deal, I think. And also, do you see the Texans are signing 16-year veteran safety Mike Adams?
Jeez. I mean, they need help in that secondary.
Yeah.
But I don't know if Mike Adams is going to bring it.
Maybe 10 years ago he would have. But, all right, Anthony, anything else you want to talk about before we wrap it up?
No, I think we got everything.
All right, guys. Me and Anthony will be back tomorrow to review the Cincinnati Bengals' dominating performance against the Pittsburgh Steelers that will probably lead to them being a Super Bowl contender by tomorrow at noon. So make sure you check us out there. Anthony, you want to tell everybody where they can find the FF Face-Off?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at The Real NFL Guru. You can follow the show at the FF Face-Off. You can find us anywhere. You can get a podcast on YouTube, on Twitch, and on social media everywhere.
All right, you find the Grueling Truth on Twitter at Grueling Truth. Make sure you like our Facebook page. Make sure you go check out our presenting sponsor, BetNow.eu, where you can get a 100% cash back bonus to bet tonight's Bengals-Steelers game. Use the promo code TRUTH100 at BetNow.eu. You can also find it GruelingTruth.com. Click on the banner at the top of the page for BetNow.eu to get that same cash back bonus to bet the game tonight. Also, make sure when you go on to grillingtruth.com, you sign up for our email list so you can get our daily top 5 sports news of the day. And definitely check out the FF Face Off. It's the best fantasy football podcast out there because it's got Mike Hoff on it.
That's nice.
See, I figured I'd just mention Mike since you do the show with Mike, because I always tell everybody how smart you are, but then you made that comment about how the Dallas Cowboys wouldn't lose for the rest of the decade, and then they lost to Teddy Bridgewater.
I'll hear about that in tomorrow's show from Mike.
You'll actually hear about that probably for the rest of your life from me and Mike, even though we know you didn't mean it. But, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. Make sure you check us out at noon tomorrow on the NFL show. So, for now, we're going to let you go. You can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Spreaker, Stitcher, wherever you find podcasts. You'll find The Grueling Truth. So, for Anthony Cervino, I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.